Okay, everyone, it's officially 8:30 p.m. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome home. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. Real quick announcement. In case you guys don't know, this gentleman in this Hawaiian shirt up here, Jason, is in charge of our YouTube channel. He does great work with that. Let's thank him personally. There's a lot of people behind the scenes doing a lot of work at this group, and it really ripples through all of AA. You know, over 250,000 people have listened to our talks on AA on our YouTube channel, so it's reaching people everywhere. So that's really important because that's what we're about here. Anyway, we got the world's greatest chairperson today, so let's please welcome Brian to come up here and let's have some fun.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Brian, and I am an alcoholic. Hey, Brian. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street, Doylestown, PA. The food and fellowship for this group starts at 8 o'clock, and the speaker comes on at 8:30. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday, 7 p.m. to 7:30. Feel free to come by early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others can benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone that's new or that is visiting from out of town or at this meeting for the first time that would like to introduce themselves on a first name basis so we can welcome you? Anybody? Yeah.
My name is Jack. I'm an alcoholic.
Jack, welcome. Anybody? Yeah. Welcome. Yeah.
Mateo, I'm an addict.
Mateo, welcome. Yeah.
Evan, alcoholic.
Evan, welcome.
Cameron, alcoholic.
Cam, welcome.
Sandra.
Sandra. Ashley, welcome. We get everybody? Okay, cool. Welcome, everyone. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with a working knowledge of the 12 steps and that is willing to sponsor, please raise their hands. So there you go. We got a lot of people here. I always say if you're new or if you're struggling, hang out after the meeting. There's always a lot of people here. Hopefully we can get you involved, get you into the solution a little bit. Grab somebody. Are there any announcements from the floor for the good of AA? Yeah.
Dave Alcoholic.
Dave.
Joe and Charlie take Big Book meeting at Expect a Miracle in Lansdale. Meets Thursdays at 8 o'clock. This coming week we have a speaker, and then the following week on July 20th, we start a new cycle of the Joe and Charlie CDs. So if you're not going to a great meeting here in Doylestown on Thursdays, come over to Lansdale and check out Joe and Charlie. If you want more information, you can see me after the meeting. I'll be right up here.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Yeah.
My name is Mike, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi.
The Pennsylvania State Conference for Young People and Alcoholics Anonymous is going to be next weekend. Basically, each year it goes to a different county. Pennsylvania this year, Bucks County is hosting. It's going to be July 14th to the 16th at the Sheridan down in Langhorne. It's a weekend full of meetings, workshops, round the clock, fun entertainment, dances, all that good stuff. All are welcome. There's no, basically say young and hard room to grow. Born after Abraham Lincoln as well. So, if you have any questions, see me or Caitlin right next to me. $25 for the whole weekend. Recovery houses get a 50% discount. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Anybody else? All right, a couple quick announcements from this group. This group has a sister group, which is a big book study meeting. It meets every Thursday at 7:30 right up the road at Salem UCC Church, 186 East Court Street in Doylestown. The coffee for that meeting's on at 6:15, so again, feel free to show up early and join us. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books or CDs to help those who cannot afford them can put their donations in the jar on the back table there, marked Big Book and CD donations. All CDs are available free of charge. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. As Ron mentioned, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. We post speakers from this meeting. There's also a STEP meeting, 6 o'clock on Monday, that we also spoke, STEP discussion meeting. We post speakers from that group on the YouTube too. This group also has a Facebook page. It's a good resource to have to stay in tune with happenings for this group, events we have going on, as well as other groups that post their anniversaries, celebrations, things like that. So a good resource to have to stay informed on happenings throughout the area on AA. And with that, I believe Cameron's going to come up here. He's going to read our Just for Today Prayer of Recovery.
Good evening, my name is Cameron, I'm an alcoholic. Just for today, prayer of recovery. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can. Dress becomingly. Talk low, act courteously. Criticize not one bit. Not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. And with that, Matt will come up and read the preamble.
Good evening, my name is Matt, I'm an alcoholic. This is the AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I've asked, next up is going to be Sandra to read the 12 steps.
Hi everybody, I'm Sandra, I'm an alcoholic. All right, the AA 12 steps of recovery. Wait a minute. Oh, they're over here. All right. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Thank you.
Okay, 7th tradition, every A group ought to be fully self-supporting. At this time, we'll make sure the basket makes its way around. There are no dues or fees for AA membership, but we do have expenses. Your contributions help us to cover the cost of rent, big books, events, workshops, refreshments, so we do appreciate it. There's absolutely no smoking on the church property. It's the church's policy, so if you could just be considerate of that as you're coming and going from the meeting. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And now to introduce our speaker for tonight, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, on loan to us from the Old School Redemption Group of Delaware. Please help me welcome Brandon.
That's how we're going to start this out tonight, huh? Okay. All right, Ron. How are you? My name is Brandon. I'm an alcoholic. And I'm a very satisfied customer of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous did for me what no other person, place, or thing ever had the ability to do. And unbeknownst to them, my mother, my employer, my employees, judges, police officers, parole officers, they're very satisfied customers of Alcoholics Anonymous as well. Because when I drink, of course I feel the wrath, but that's par for the course. The people that really feel it are the ones that are the closest to me, that mean the most to me, that I love the most. You know, and you're gonna hear in my story that my alcoholism is the kind that, like, if you tell me you love me, that means I got you for at least $10. You know, and my story kind of dictates that during my active alcoholism, people have to leave me and they have to love me from a distance for their safety and mine. And that's the reality of my alcoholism. And you're going to hear my story tonight that I might get rather upfront, very descriptive, and extremely graphic at times. As a matter of fact, I keep my past married to my present. Because the moment that this alcoholic forgets the pain that brought him through the doors of treatment center number 13, praying to God for one more chance, it's not a matter of if I return, but when. Right? And I'm going to share with you my story. I'm not going to pretend to understand. I will never understand what the fuck brought you here to listen to me tonight, but I'm not going to pretend to understand the road that you took to get here. That's not fair to me or you. But if you're sitting in these chairs and you recognize some similarities, maybe more so than differences, maybe it might make sense to take heed. And if not, I completely understand, and I will cheerlead and be your number one fan from the sidelines in whatever direction you feel makes the most sense for you to go in, for you to find your happiness on whatever pursuit you're on. I don't come from a position of speaking from the top of the mountain as if I am the great I am, and no. I simply can share with you my story, my history, and my current state, which God willing will lead to a very beautiful future. And today, at this very moment, it has. But when I come in here and I say, hi, my name is Brandon, I'm an alcoholic, all that simply means that I'm defiant by nature. I hate authority, and I refuse to conform. Because, see, I possess this job, and this job places me in a lot of positions I don't like to be in, and it allows me to feel a lot of feelings I don't like to feel, and that job consists of knowing everything. Right? So thank you, Conscious Contact. Thank you, Ron, for kindly suggesting to me what I should do to potentially save my life, but I kindly suggest why you should fuck off. Because I know. I know. And the scary thing about that is that my resume states that I do know some things, because I've done some things in life that people might equate to success, happiness, potentially even dream of doing. Paired with the fact that I have this delusional alcoholic mind that lies to me in my own voice and makes me believe the unbelievable on a daily basis. Come to find out, on May 25th, 2015, I found myself in a position where I was divinely inconvenienced in just such a matter that the God of my understanding showed up and created just a big enough gap between me and the last bottle I put to my mouth, which would allow me to have that moment of clarity to see what my life really looked like was. And for the first time in my life, I myself, Brandon Novak, was no longer accepting of the outcome that I had continuously created for myself. May 25th, 2015, I found myself walking into my 13th inpatient treatment center. I had lost count of outpatients and detoxes. My mother had bought me a plot. People had began to take life insurance policies out on me. May 23rd, 2015, I found myself coming to on life support at Mercy Hospital in Baltimore City, the very same hospital that my mother was a nuclear physicist on the board of. Recently retired after 53 years of gainful employment, second longest employer in Mercy Hospital history, and our family reunions would look like me traveling down to Lexington Market in Baltimore City, if anybody's familiar, and I'd get really loaded, guaranteed overdose loaded. And and an ambulance would show up. It put me on the gurney, put me in the back, drive me down to the emergency room, and they'd wheel me in after giving me the Narcan, and without fail, this would happen at least once a month, sometimes a few times in a month. They'd get on the phone, they'd call up to the 3rd floor nuclear medicine department and say, "Pat, your boy's back. Pat, we have Brandon again." I had been medevaced to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states from 4 different overdoses. Right? But oddly enough, I had these goals, I had these dreams, I had these ambitions. I was going to be somebody. My mother was a nuclear physicist. My brother is an attorney who works in the White House, practicing pensions and benefits. My father was an alcoholic who died untreated. Right? He never held a job a day in his life. He taught me one thing, if and when I go to prison, how to conduct myself. And he ran with the Hells Angels. He was a rather unsavory kind of fellow, if you will. He acquired the liking of alcohol and other substances, and his body shut down, and he's no longer with us today. And the reason why I give you the breakdown, the description of my childhood and what it looked like coming up is because if you would have asked me 30, 60, 90 days into my process of sobriety what my home life looked like, I would have told you, and I would have believed what I said, that I came from the most debilitating home that a child should ever be brought up in, and no one, under no circumstances, should ever have to endure the things I endured as a child. That's not the truth. That's not the reality of my situation. The truth of the matter with my situation was I came from a very loving home with a very loving family that did the best they could with what they had, right? And I live with that after-school special. I live with that cautionary tale of what alcohol and other things upon consumption make an individual do. And I excelled at everything to prove a point why I would never become my father. And at 7, I got my first skateboard. And that night when my mother put me to bed with this skateboard, she said, "Brandon, what would you like me to do with this board?" And I said, "I want it in bed with me." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Because if I die, I want it to go with me." Right? The moment that board touched my hand, I knew I was going to be a skateboarder for the rest of my life. There was no reason for a plan B, a trait, or an option. A trait that I possessed at a young age, but I think a lot of people in this room might be able to relate to, is that thing that's despite any and all adverse consequences that came my way, I did what I had to do to get what I wanted to get. Right? Failure was not an option. No was unacceptable. And at 14, I find myself being the first skateboarder ever in the world to be endorsed by Gatorade. And they're flying me to Chicago to where they make this Gatorade at the Quake Roads building at the time. And it's this big, factory. And they're running all these tests on all these sports players. And they take me into this room, and in this room there's these treadmills. and during the day they put me on this treadmill, and they put Michael Jordan on this treadmill next to me, and they strap these EKGs to our chest, and they give us each Gatorade to see the effects it has on different sports players. That night we're going to his steakhouse, right? And this is at 14. And later on I'm designing my pro model for Pal Peralta. I'm touring the world with the likes of Tony Hawk and these other skateboarders. From a very young age, I had achieved some things that I always dreamed of. The only thing I had ever dreamed of, to be honest. And, looking back, skateboarding did for me at a very young age what drugs and alcohol did for me at a later age. Right? You give me that board, at the age of 7, and you put me in the room with the world's prettiest models, I'll not only believe that they've been waiting for me, but that they're dying to marry me. I don't know why you laugh at that. But drugs and alcohol produce that same delusional narrative later on down the road, right? And the reason, again, why I'm sharing this with you is because I'm trying to paint a very clear, vivid picture of the severity of my alcoholism and the situations and places that it places me, and that I really lose the say-so to have a decision in the matter anymore. I wasn't the kid that took that first drink, sniffed that first thing, ate that first thing, did that first thing, and had that aha moment. I had found the reason for which I will wake up, open my eyes, and jump out of bed every morning with the lust of life. That's not my story. The reality of my story is I don't even recall the first time I partook in a drink or a drug. I don't. Didn't change the effects I wasn't in search of, didn't feel like I was in lack of, I wasn't trying to discover anything. I had found my peace, my joy, my happiness in skateboarding. But what I can recall, just like I'm touching this podium, is that the first time that someone attempted to stand between me and a drink. And you'll hear in my story that anybody, literally anybody, in any place, in anything that attempts to stand between me and it must and will go. And it was never personal, it was just business. Because the reality was I didn't want to do the thing that I had to do the majority of the times to get what I needed to get, but the disease from which I suffer from does not allow me to have a say-so in my life anymore. I have a decision over that first one, and after that, all bets are off. And so again, when I put my hand up and I say, hi, my name is Brandon, I'm an alcoholic, all that means I'm defiant by nature, I hate authority, I refuse to conform. And if you can relate to anything in that, what my God-willing agenda here tonight before you beautiful ladies and gentlemen is to deliver my message in a form that you find so desirable, so appealing, so attractive, so much so that you want to fuck it. Because if I can get you to want what I have that bad, and you're willing to do anything that it takes in order to achieve what I'm giving, then the terms of your contract will forever change. I wish that I could, but unfortunately I can't do this for you. Your mother can't do it for you. Your son, your daughter, your significant other, we can't do this thing for you. But what I found is when it became my idea, I excelled at a rapid pace. So my agenda tonight is to deliver my message in a form of attraction rather than promotion, so that when I'm done speaking, you may just say, if that guy can do it, there's no reason why I can't. I'm on a tour with a bunch of professional skateboarders, and we're in Atlanta. And we go to these different skate shops in these different states, and we perform these demos. And I'm with a bunch of other pro skaters, and we're doing this demo, and my behaviors are off, right? Because I'm highly under the influence. And one of these pro skaters that are with us, he finds the stuff that's in my pockets, and he said, Brandon, get rid of this stuff or get off the tour. So as any good alcoholic does, I throw the stuff down the sewer, we finish the demo, I get back to the hotel, I meet a young lady there, she drives me back to said sewer, I fish the stuff back out of the sewer. Short story long, I get caught and I'm kicked off this tour. Now see, my delusional alcoholic brain that I possess that lies to me my own voice, that makes me believe the unbelievable from a very young age, would tell me these things like, especially at this particular time, that the skateboarding world needs me and it cannot go on without me and I am an asset. And in reality, the skateboarding world did not need me. It went on quite fine without me, and I was a liability. Unfortunately, I was the last person to realize, understand, or accept that, because I possessed that job that consisted of knowing everything. Right? So now with this unexpected freedom that I now possess from being kicked off this tour. I'm home sleeping, and the next morning my mother throws the phone to me, and I put it to my ear, and it's my team captain, the guy who I report to for Pal Peralta, and he said, "Look, Novak, we're going to give you one of two chances and choices here. You can save your life, continue to skate for Pal, but you have to accept this help and go to treatment. Or you can quit the team." Right? From 7 to 16, almost 17, I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it, I had become it. Literally, if I were to have died at that young age, I would have been the happiest child to have ever walked this earth. And now, the very first time, the disconnection from reality and or abnormality. The abnormal's far become the normal, and I haven't even had the pleasure of entering into my first treatment center yet. And I'm being forced with this ultimatum. Go to treatment, save your life, and continue to have everything you want, live and wake up for, or quit the team. And I don't have a breath of fresh air in my lungs when I said I quit. So around 2 more months of me just kind of hanging around my mother's house, and one day I'm met at the door by my mother and my girlfriend. They said, "We have a great idea for you, Brandon." I said, "What's that?" They said, "We want you to go to treatment." I had just turned down this offer from Santa Claus, let's say, to a child. You know, like that's the. Why do you think I would accept it from them? And I thought about it for a moment. Again, the disconnection from reality, the abnormal has become the normal. Right? At the stark young age of 17, I said, "You know what? That's an amazing idea. I'm going to go to said treatment center and report back to my mother and my girlfriend why I'm not you nut jobs, nor will I ever be. This was simply just an overreaction at best. You just caught me at a bad time, on a bad way, and a bad day. Tomorrow will be different." Still to this day, I don't understand how it happened, but as soon as I agreed, a bag appeared that was completely packed. And like that, I'm in the back of my mother's car. She's driving me to the first facility I'll ever have the privilege of entering at the ripe young age of 17 in Baltimore City. And as quick as she takes me, she drops me off, she's gone. I'm met by a very nice, caring woman out front. She said, "Are you Mr. Novak?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Come with me, sweetie." And she takes me into this cafeteria. And in this cafeteria, the cafeteria is completely empty. There's not a soul in sight. She said, "Just go ahead and wait here for me, and I'll be back." It's got these lights that are kind of like this, very interrogation style. I'm ill as a research monkey. I'm detoxing from my thing. And out of nowhere, this older black gentleman walks in. And he walks directly up to me and he said, "White boy, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Heroin, alcohol." He said, "How old are you?" I said, 17. He said, "Do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this." And as quick as he came, he left. He nor I had no idea the significance that simple conversation was ever going to have on my life. Now, mind you, you people were my father. I want no part. I can't stomach or stand you. As a matter of fact, I hate you, and I don't even know you. And I mean that. So what in your right mind thinks that I will relate, even be friendly, even tolerate, even look at, even speak to you? I'm focusing only on the differences, not the similarities. I possess this job that consists of knowing everything. You people aren't like me. You people are my father. I hate you. And you know what I can tell you about that gentleman? Where the 4 teeth were placed in his mouth. Because at the time I had all mine. Right? He's black, I'm white. He's 70 to 75, I'm 17. He's homeless, I live with my mother. He smokes crack, I successfully do heroin. God bless that man. I'm so grateful he found the answer for which he's in search of, and I mean that. You know what I can't tell you about that facility? I can't tell you my therapist's name. I can't tell you about that relapse prevention packet they're shoving down my throat. The healthy and unhealthy boundaries they're trying to instill in me, because if I can tell you about those things, that means I can relate to being one of you people, and I want no part. I successfully complete that 30-day facility. While in there, I build no defense against the next encounter that I will have upon completion of being in this safe, sacred bubble. But I didn't turn 18 in a place like that. That old fool. How dare that fool of a man try to say that he could predict my future? But I turned 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 27, 29, 30, 33, 34, 35, 37, 38 in a jail or a treatment center. And every year I'd sit on whatever bed of whatever room of whatever treatment center I happened to be in, or whatever bunk of whatever cell of whatever facility I was incarcerated in, and think back to that older gentleman and say, maybe if me, myself, Brandon Novak, would have listened to him with an open mind and an open heart, I would not continuously find myself in this situation or paint this picture for what you view me in. Now, in between all those attempts and all those years, I'm in and out of these facilities, and I would go in here and I would loiter with the intent to recover, right? I would always get this therapist that was always easy on the eye, and I was always convinced that she was dying to marry me. And so I was going to show her how great of a client that I would be to prove that we will fucking ride off into the sunset. Again, not sure why you're laughing. But she'd say, okay, Mr. Novak, I'm going to go ahead and need you to acquire a sponsor. Check. I'm going to need you to go ahead and get one of those home groups. Got it. I'm going to need you to find a bunch of like-minded people just like you who are trying to achieve the same thing, which is another day sober. Of course. See, what I don't think that this lovely young lady was aware of, that I wasn't the kid that used to walk in class 20 minutes late in fear that you're staring at me. I was the kid that would walk in class 20 minutes late and believe that you've been waiting for me. So everything that she's saying that I do is like a Monday morning for me. Go to a place, hang out with people, socialize, link up, talk to. But then, without fail, right before I was ready to leave that door, she'd say, real quick, but before you leave, Mr. Novak, I'm also going to need you to go ahead and experience those 12 steps of whatever fellowship you decide to join. And I'd say, oh man, I can't, it still hurts me to say, but I'm beginning to sense a theme of over-fucking reaction. And for the life of me now, I can't understand. It's 2008. Christmas Eve. I'm in an abandoned shooting gallery in West Baltimore. And all I have on is this like 3XL white t-shirt, these size like 40 jeans with these Timberland boots on, and I'm huddled into the corner, and my arms are pulled into my shirt's pulled over my head, and my knees are up in my shirt, and because that's the only thing I can do to produce heat. How did I get here? How did I get here? What I've learned in my journey of sobriety is that everything is in retrospect, and today my life is live forward and learn backwards, right? So everything that I'm sharing with you tonight is not what I knew when I sat in my facility 30 days in. And having experienced the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which has led to the spiritual experience, which means I've had a psychic change. It's very easy for me to look back and recognize the synchronicity in life's events that have led me to the here and now, that prove to me the God of my understanding has been doing so much more for me, so much longer than I could ever conceive. Right? And My mother's a nuclear physicist. My brother's an attorney in the White House. My father dies as a direct result of disease addiction. First skateboard endorsed by Gatorade, doing a commercial with Jordan, touring the world with Tony Hawk. I've done some things that people would equate to success, happiness, maybe even dream of doing, but the reality of my alcoholism is I've now been in 8 inpatient treatment centers. My mother spent last Mother's Day going to buy 2 plots, one for me and one for her, because her fear is that if she dies, who will take care of her only son? I'll speak for myself, but I'm going to generalize this as well. I don't believe that any of us get here because we took the short bus to school. Quite the contrary. I got here because I was too smart for my own goddamn good. And then I get to a place in a seat that has the potential to honestly save my life, and I'll outthink myself right out of it. I've seen me do it. And no fool by any means, pride myself on being an outside-the-box kind of thinker. Why would I waste your time to go to treatment center number 9? What's 9 going to tell me that 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 is missed? I have this plan, and this plan is going to work. And my plan consists of moving to Helsinki, Finland. It's literally across the world. They don't even speak my language there. I'm going to go there, I'm going to regroup, I'm going to rebrand, I'm going to reevaluate, I'm going to reassess, I'm going to redo my life, because I no longer like the results that I'm receiving in Westchester, Pennsylvania, or Baltimore, Maryland. See, I've tripped and I've fallen into these movies that do extremely well, and these TV shows that are pretty successful. And again, from external perspective, it looks like I have a really firm grasp of my life and what's going on. And by social standards, I've arrived. But internally, behind closed doors, I can't keep a bottle out of my mouth or a thing out of my arm. And my mother's prayers have now shifted from the beginning of my alcoholism. She would get on her knees and she would pray to God, please God, don't let tonight be the night that I receive that call that my son's finally succumbed to his alcoholism. Please don't let tonight be that night. To now, God bless her soul, my mother gets on her very same knees and prays to the very same God. Please God, let tonight be the night that I finally receive that call. Please God, let tonight be the night that I finally receive that call that he's succumbed to his alcoholism, just so I can have a peace of mind knowing he's safe once and for all. From a very young age, my mother used to tell me, show me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. And that transcended into me being in one of my facilities, swearing to God that one of these therapists that were head over heels in love with me, telling me that social acceptability equals personal recovery, which is not true. I don't want you to take that the wrong way, but the point I'm trying to make is my delusional alcoholic brain will create these delusional narratives that support and justify my relapse behaviors as long as it's headed towards a drink. And when I'm unarmed with the facts and don't have this healthy respect for the disease from which I suffer from, it's no wonder I get knocked the fuck out every time I step in the ring. Right, and looking back, it's so easy to see why I got beat to hell every time I got in the ring, because I always underestimated the opponent that I was up against. Right, because I know. Why wouldn't I know? My resume states that I know. Social standards state that I know. My bank account states that I know at times. So show me who you walk with, I'll tell you who you are, which transcended into social acceptability equaling personal recovery. I go to the Philadelphia International Airport, I fly to Helsinki, Finland. I'm picked up by a car service that then takes me to the Ritz-Carlton of Helsinki, because what alcoholic would stay at the Ritz-Carlton of Helsinki? filling this internal void with the external solution. Show me who you walk with, I'll tell you who you are, right? Not to mention I have this alcoholic brain that lies to me in my own voice, making me believe the unbelievable, that when I walked in here, the pain was great enough, I couldn't wait to sit in the front row and say, I'm an alcoholic. But now after 30, 60, 90, 6 months, 9 months, a few years sober, forget the pain that brought me in, I'll start to believe that I'm no longer an alcoholic. And as a matter of fact, the things that got me to receive these promises that you guys say is available now become an inconvenience because my life is really full. Ooh. I've seen me do it. I've seen me do it. So I go directly to the lobby bar and I order a glass of wine followed by a second. There's 4 glasses to a bottle. I've now graduated to the bottle. I'm slid a phone number by a gentleman at the bar who now has another man delivering a lot of products in abundance. I now go to the bathroom. I'm doing what I do. And the reason why I kept harping on sharing with you about the therapist that I always believed wanted to marry me was not from the egotistical perspective of I'm the man. It was more so for all these people that have put their hand up, whether it's their first meeting, their first time in sobriety. I don't care what it takes that brought you here. I don't care what it is that has you in this room. That's going to make a little more sense right now. I don't care if you're here for the court, the fiance, the lack thereof, the parole agent, the termination, the divorce. I don't care. I don't care whatever it took to get you here. So although I acquired the sponsor under false pretenses just to kind of woo my therapist, if you will, my back's against the wall. I'm in Helsinki, Finland, in the bathroom of the Ritz-Carlton doing what I do, and I pull my phone out and I call my sponsor. And I said, Lex, how did this happen? I was not supposed to do what I was doing in Westchester, Pennsylvania or Baltimore, Maryland. How did this happen? And he said, well, Novak, if you have a second, I'd like to share with you something. But after all, I know you're a very busy man with a really full itinerary, and these international calls can become quite pricey. What, Lex? He said, I guess you skimmed over the part in the book where we talked about geographical change not equating to recovery. You can't shake your shadow. You take you with you everywhere you go. Put you in Finland, you get loaded. I put you in Doylestown, you get loaded. I put you in Africa, you get loaded. Florida, you get loaded. Baltimore, you get loaded. Florida. My baby's born, you get loaded. My mother dies, you get loaded. These people toss around these words like triggers, and I don't think that they understand. My alcoholism is the kind that when my eyes open, that's my trigger. It doesn't take a certain event. I'll get loaded over your plaid shirt and have a great goddamn time doing it. I've seen me do it. And he said, if you have another second, I'd like to share with you something else, but I know that you're a very busy man, Novak, and that itinerary is insanely full, and these international calls, you've been on the phone for a minute. What, Lex? I see what he's doing. And he said, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to stop what you're doing. I want you to take that thing out of your arm. And I want you to lift your head up and stare to the mirror directly in front of you and tell me what you see. He said, better yet, don't say a goddamn word. I'm going to tell you what you see. You're staring directly into the eyes of your problem. And for one of the very rare handful of moments in time, you're allowing someone to stand between you and your solution. And on this phone call, you're like a stranger in your own skin trying to figure out who the fuck let you in and why. I said, you know what, Lex? These international calls are quite pricey. Click. My delusional alcoholic brain will create these delusional narratives as long as they support and justify my relapse behaviors. The type of alcoholic that I am, when I came in and I was diagnosed as an alcoholic, I fully conceded to the innermost personal self that I am an alcoholic. Could not justify and minimize the severity of my situation. The handwriting's on the wall. 22 years of active alcoholism. The rap sheet goes. I ran out of reasons to lie to myself, and trust me, if I could, I would. And the insane part about that is that I've been diagnosed with a disease, right? Now having a proper understanding of what I'm up against, a healthy fear of my opponent, a mutual respect for the power of, and I know to be true, and this is not debatable, it's not at all, it's an absolute fact, that I've been diagnosed with a disease that if left untreated equals fatal. It's a fatal death. Look at my father. But as far as I'm aware of, it's the only fatal disease from which I've been diagnosed and possessed that lies to me in my own voice, making me believe the unbelievable, that I no longer possess this disease. Follow me. Diagnose me with HIV. I'm rushing to the hospital to get medication. I don't want to die. Fatal disease. Diagnose me with cancer. I'm rushing to the hospital to get chemo. I don't want to die. Fatal disease. My dear friend Ron diagnoses me an alcoholic. I need a glass of wine or a bag of heroin to figure out what the fuck's wrong with you for diagnosing me with said disease. Just as fatal as the first two diseases, but left to my own devices, I will leave this podium. I'll go get into my car. I haven't partook in a drink or a drug in over 8 years, which might blow your mind, but I've been able to save a lot of money. And I'll go to my bank and I'll pull out an undisclosed amount of cash and I'll go right back around the way and do what I did. And the scariest thing about that is that can make complete sense to me right now at this very moment. Right now. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm an interventionist. I own sober living houses. I own a treatment center. I have a sponsor. I sponsor people. I'm a grand sponsor. I'm in the thick of it. And if you're sitting there saying to yourself, what in the world would allow him to make such a foolish decision at this point in his life? It's so simple. Brandon attends Brandon's Anonymous. Brandon sponsors Brandon. And Brandon is Brandon's God. And when those three things are connected, it's not a matter of if, but when, and I've seen me do it. See, for the better part of 22 years, all I've done was just rearrange the furniture on the Titanic. And my ship sank every goddamn time. And the only way I got to where I'm at is because I simply did process of elimination, but backwards. They say a hard head makes for a soft ass, and I promise you, my ass is probably the softest in this room. So I don't even make it up to the room. I have the concierge go, they get my luggage, they bring it back down to the desk. I have a car service take me back to the airport, and now I'm flying back to Philadelphia because after all, Helsinki's now the problem. Mother's a nuclear physicist, brother's an attorney in the White House, father dies as a direct result of disease of addiction. First skateboard endorsed by Gatorade. Touring the world with other pro skaters. Now I'm in these movies that break box office records regularly. And done some things that people equate to success, happiness, maybe even dream of doing. The reality of my alcoholism is I've now been in 11 inpatient treatment centers. I've lost count of outpatients and detoxes. My mother's bought me that plot, and she sold a few homes to pay for me to go to a couple different treatment centers. I've been medevac to a few different hospitals in a few different states from a few different overdoses. My days are spent standing on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park, prostituting my body to secure enough finances to acquire another drink. How did I get here? When I sat there, I had these goals, I had these dreams, I had these ambitions, I had these intentions. You people were my father. I excelled at everything I did to prove a point why I would never become that bum. I am him, but worse. What the fuck? Sadly underestimated the opponent that I was up against. See, I possessed this job that consisted of knowing every time I stepped foot into one of your places, I focused only on the differences, not the similarities. Because why? I know this. I understand this. I'm too smart for my own goddamn good. Now I decide I'm going to write a book. Now see, what you may or may not know is that I never graduated high school. I got no high school diploma. I got my GED later on in life in the penitentiary. But I decided I was going to write a book. Yeah. Pen to paper. Laptops aren't in my story. I can pawn them very well, but I don't use them. Still to date, current. I don't email. I have an assistant that does a lot of this stuff for me, but just telling you my story and what it looks like. No fool by any means. Did not get here because I took the short bus to school. Quite the contrary. I get here because I'm too smart for my own good, and if I'm not aware of what I'm doing, more importantly, the disease from which I suffer from and the severity of it, I'll outthink myself out of this room that has the ability to save my life. I'm going to write this book, and I go to the bookstore and I get my favorite author's book. Go figure, it's an autobiography, addiction memoir. Love drugs, love alcohol, can't get enough of them. And I look at the outline of his book, and he wrote his book in 12 chapters, so I do the same. I turn my book into 12 chapters, pen to paper. I finish this. I have a co-author who's a very intelligent man with letters in front and behind his name, and I hand him my 12 chapters. He turns that into 23. We acquire a literary agent. The literary agent shops my manuscript around to a whole lot of no's and a few yeses, and we come to an agreement with Kensington Publishers Citadel Press. I'm now a published author of an addiction memoir that you can buy, not like a self-published, pay a few bucks, have somebody write your deal. Like, the book does extremely well. As a matter of fact, it was just revised in its 11th edition. And in the literary world, if you're familiar with it, that's like an insanely big deal. But I'm receiving hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail from all over the world. People like you, Mr. YouTube, saying, Novak, I read your book. I didn't want my story to get as bad as yours. I have 30 days. People like you saying, I read your book. I understand when my daughter picks the bottle on the weekends. It's not that I'm a bad dad. It's that she suffers with the disease of alcoholism. My delusional alcoholic brain just told me I wrote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Again, not sure why you're laughing. But at the time, I was serious when I said that. Like, you're the fool for laughing at that at the time. The book becomes a New York Times top 10 seller. The night my book's being released in Times Square in New York City, my literary agent's there, my publisher's there, my manager's there. All these very well-to-do people in the scholarly world are here for this event. I'm there, but I don't feel good that day. And I looked to my assistant and I said, CJ, I'm going to need you to give me $100. And he said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I said, do I need to remind you whose payroll you're on? And he said, I refuse to allow you to ruin what might be your very last chance of doing anything productive while you're alive on this earth. Your mother is coming tonight. With that, they're wheeling my books in on this dolly in these boxes. They're setting up the display cases. And I have a buddy of mine with me from Baltimore, and he's sitting over there in the corner, and he doesn't feel good either. And we don't say a word, but we take a look at each other, and we have that conversation of the heart, that language of the untreated, if you will. And I stand up, he stands up in uniform precision. I go over, I grab 2 boxes of my books. He grabs 2 boxes of it. I've now just stolen 4 boxes of my own autobiography, addiction memoir books from my own book release party in New York City to take back to Baltimore to sell to buy more alcohol. How did I get here? My time is numbered here, so I'm going to get through this. We do what we do. We part ways in Baltimore. I get on a train, I come back to Westchester, and a common theme of my story is that locks stop working. And I walk up the stairs to our place, my second now ex-fiance in my home, and they have a pattern of trying to stand between me and my drink. And that just is unacceptable to my kind of alcoholism. And I get up to the top of the stairs, and I go to put the key in the lock doesn't work, so I kick the door in. And when I get in there, the house is completely empty. she's taken our paintings, she's taken our furniture, our cats, her clothes, my clothes. And I found myself in a position some people in here might be able to relate to, of lying on this floor in a fetal position, crying uncontrollably. This big empty shell of a house. And at that moment, it dawned on me that this big empty shell of a house now consoles this big empty shell of a man lying on the floor crying uncontrollably. And guess what the only thing I can think of at that moment is? That older gentleman from the very first treatment center said, do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this. Because yet again, if I just would have listened with an open mind and an open heart, I would not be in this position. And if you're sitting in the seats and you're back and you're like, God damn it, thank God he sorted himself out, but that can't be, that won't be me. My story would never end that way. Don't miss what I'm about to say. My story was not my story either in the beginning. You know, if you would have called me at treatment center number 2, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, you wouldn't have got what you're getting tonight. You know, there's a saying that holds near and dear to my heart, and it goes, procrastination is like masturbation, you only fuck yourself. And what I could have avoided with having an open mind and an open heart at treatment center number 1, I decided to prolong for 22 years and made my mother literally pray for my death. And that's a shame. So with that, my mother calls me and she's crying hysterically, and she still lives in Baltimore City. And around 8.5 years ago, the police killed a young black man named Freddie Gray in Baltimore. My mother lives around 15 blocks from where that incident occurred. And at the time, Baltimore City turned into the movie The Purge. They were robbing, they were looting, they were shooting, they were stealing, they were burning blocks down. They had brought the National Guard in and stood on every corner with a machine gun and a tank, and they infused the 8 o'clock curfew. No one was to be on the streets. And my mother, terrified for her own life, she called me and said, please, please, please come make sure that I don't get killed. And in theory, my plan was to go make sure this woman who loved me when I didn't love myself, who prayed for me when I didn't pray for myself, who fed me when I didn't feed myself, who bathed me when I didn't bathe myself, I was going to make sure that she was as safe as humanly possibly could be. I love her more than anything in this world. In reality, my disease said, that's real cute, bitch. Let me show you what your actions are going to look like. You're going to get on this train, you're going to go back to Baltimore, you're going to go up into her 78-year-old room, you're going to physically remove that woman from her bedroom, you're going to commandeer that room, you'll leave that bedroom once a day for 3 months. You'll sneak out every morning at 4:30 a.m., you'll steal her debit card, you'll hit the bodega, steal $180 a day, and wash, rinse, repeat. And May 25th, the same series of events were taking place. I went into the neighborhood to get what I was getting. When I came back, I was met at the front door with my mother and my hotshot attorney brother from D.C. And he brought my mother up into her bedroom that I took over. You know, she refused to go up those stairs because ignorance was bliss. And who wants to watch their son kill himself one drink at a time on a layaway plan? So my brother walked her up into that bedroom, and in that bedroom, it looked like a murder scene. Right? There's these blood on the walls and the ceilings and these paraphernalia and the bottles and the bags and the cookers and the... If you don't know, thank God. If you can relate, thank God. And with that, she's standing at the front step. I go to put my key in the lock does not work, so I politely knock on the door. I would never kick my mother's door in. Right? Disconnection from reality. I'm living on this animalistic level at this point where I merely live to use and use to live. And all of a sudden I'm met by my mother and my brother at the door, and my mother's crying uncontrollably, and at this point my words hold no more weight. I'm tired of hearing my own voice. I'm done. And despite being a pretty successful individual, at this moment in time I'm a 38-year-old homeless alcoholic who wants to kill himself on a daily basis. I just do not want to hurt myself in the process. I'm terrible at suicide because I keep waking up, and I'm met at the door by the woman who I love more than anything in this world, and she's crying uncontrollably, and all I can do is look at her and say, Mom, do you hate me? She said, no, sweetheart, I'll never hate you, but I can no longer love you to death. You have to go. And with that, my brother hands me everything that I own, which consists of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, a stick of deodorant. It all fits into this bag that doubles as my pillow, a needle, a spoon. And with that, a police officer comes around the corner. He said, are you Mr. Novak? I said, yes, sir. He said, "This is for you." I opened up, it's a restraining order. He said, "If I catch you on your mother's premises again, I promise you, I will not be so kind." A series of events took place that I just don't have the time to get into, and I'm walking up the street, and I'm intercepted by a divine force who then takes me to see my parole officer, and my parole officer grants me one more chance of clemency, and he sends me back to the same facility I've been to 4 times over my 13 overall. And I sit in the same chair with the same intake coordinator, and without fail, she'd always say, "Okay, Mr. Novak, your insurance will cover you for 90 days. And my rebuttal without fail was, in theory, 90 days is great, but in reality, I'm more of like a 45-day kind of film. And she'd laugh at me just as you did and say, "Sweetheart, anything and everything you put in front of your recovery does not or will not matter because it will go." May 25th, 2015, I have finally been demoralized in just such a fashion from drugs and alcohol. I've been beaten into a state of reasonableness. Actually, for the first time in my life, I've been beaten speechless by my disease of alcoholism. I'm sitting in the same chair with the same therapist, and she says, "Your insurance will cover you for 90 days. And for the first time in my life, all I can do is shake my head yes. I literally can't even talk, because if I say no, it entails an explanation. I am out of fight." She said, "You're in no condition to do this intake. Get up to detox. I'll see you in 4 days." And I get up to detox, and I'm met by this 19-year-old tech who goes by Brian. And Brian said, "Mr. Novak, you're back." And I said, "Aren't you a fucking genius, boy? You don't miss a beat." Now, what I didn't have time to get into, and I'm really running out of time, Ryan's going to kill me, but my clothes are literally tied on by a shoestring at this point. I got robbed prior to going to the facility, and I had no underwear on, so my front and my back are completely exposed. I had this button-up shirt on, and when they robbed me, they ripped the shirt open. The only button that's still buttoned is this very top button. I had these shoes on, but I had lost a shoestring along the way, if you know what I mean. And I walked into this treatment center looking like a gay East LA Cholo gangbanger. And I'm met by a kid named Brian who's 19 years old, and he's never so happy to see me. And I fear at the thought of confrontation. It's from traumatic experiences from my father growing up that I'm the most passive person in the world. And I've never wanted to knock someone's head off so bad in my life. And it wasn't personal. It was because I couldn't stand myself so much, and it had been so long since I found any reason to be optimistic or smile about the future. So when you did it in my presence, I took it fucking personal. And he said, "Don't worry, Mr. Novak, come with me downstairs, and we're going to get you some clothes, because what you're wearing right now is not rehab oriented. You need some underwear, you need some sweatpants, you need some slides." And I had heard you nut job caught people like Ron saying, "A grateful alcoholic will never drink again." And it didn't make sense until it made sense. And the day that it made sense for me is when I'm standing in the basement of a Catholic Charities rehab that cost me $2 to get into, next to a 19-year-old kid named Brian, who's thumbing through these donation boxes looking for some used underwear, and I'm praying to God that he finds them. How the fuck did I get here? He doesn't find the used underwear, but what he finds is a pair of size 40 women's sweatpants with no drawstring, a woman's tank top, and a pair of size 13 Jesus sandals. I don't know how alert or attentive you are, but I'm not a woman, and I do not wear a size 13. But 2 things took place at that moment that were forever going to change the course of my life, that at the time I thought was the absolute worst day of my life, was shaping up to be the best day of my life. The very first thing that happened when he handed me the women's clothes and shoes did not fit, I came to the realization that, you know what I do know? Is that I have no idea. And my very best thinking has placed me here accepting women's clothes from a 19-year-old kid in a $2 basement. What the fuck? And when he handed me the women's clothes, I was overcome with a sense of willingness, right? Spiritual experience of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I was overcome with a sense of willingness, unlike anything a human could produce. I was never so excited to go upstairs, get that shower, get that Baltimore City smell off me, and put women's clothing on in my life. I successfully completed that 90-day treatment center. Things that they taught me in that facility were like, if I changed my perception, I could change my world. And that one day my defects, the very same thing that was killing me, one layaway, one bag, one bottle, one pill, one pipe at a time, could become my asset. The very same thing that my dear friend Ron asked me to come out to speak to you, beautiful ladies and gentlemen, and deliver a message of promise, hope, and freedom in a form of attraction rather than promotion, so that maybe you might say, if I can do it, so can you, because that's what happened to me. From that 90-day facility, I went to a sober living house where I lived for 1 year. 2 months shy into my 2-year anniversary, I'd been on parole and probation for from 18 to 38, never a free day in between. It simply followed me from state to state, state to state. I signed my release papers. I'm a free man that can go anywhere with anybody, anytime I like. I no longer live in a self-induced prison that consists of a 4-block radius that costs me $10 to get out of, one bottle at a time. Decided to get my 2-year medallion abroad. I flew to Paris to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and got my 2-year medallion. On my 3rd year anniversary, I bought a home. On my 4th year anniversary, I went to Amsterdam to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and got my 4-year medallion. Most people do not equate Amsterdam and recovery. But the reality is, as a direct result of the spiritual experiences I've received from the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm a free man that can go anywhere with anybody, anytime I like. Why? Because I remain proactive in my sobriety, and because I know that I suffer with a disease called alcoholism, not alcoholism. And I cannot stay sober on yesterday's sobriety. On my 5th year anniversary, you weirdo people kept saying, in order to keep what you have to give it away. And I vowed that when I found myself in a position where I was financially capable, I was going to recreate that sober living house that I lived in for a year. And literally on my 5th year anniversary, I opened up this men's sober living house in Wilmington, Delaware with 10 beds. And today I have like 6 with 65. And I travel all around the world, and I give these talks to raise the scholarship foundation so that I can provide a scholarship for any man in need who wants to follow and further their journey of recovery upon completing a program. I refuse to let price be a deterrent as to why somebody can't stay sober. I've literally devoted my life to the very same thing that I allowed take it early on. May 25th, 2023, I've celebrated 8 years of continuous sobriety. I'm truly one of the most grateful alcoholics, and I've never been more grateful to be an alcoholic. Thank God, God made me an alcoholic. My perception has completely changed. Today, sobriety has given me everything drugs and alcohol ever promised me. My name is Brandon. Thank you for your time.
Okay, good evening everyone. Again, my name is Brian, I'm an alcoholic. First and foremost, I want to thank Brandon for coming here, delivering an incredible message of hope and recovery. A couple of quick announcements and we'll wrap it up here. Again, the food and the fellowship for this group starts at 8 o'clock. Feel free to show up here early if you want to get involved with this meeting, get involved with some service. We always appreciate it. If you want to hang out afterwards, help us put some chairs away, we appreciate that too. It's customary for us to thank our speakers. They come here on their own time and expense, so we usually form a line in the front here, thank our speakers. I want to thank everybody for being a part of this meeting tonight. Thank our readers. Thanks to Ed, Jason, Dave for taking care of the kitchen back there. But most importantly, let's give one more round of applause to our speakers. And if you do care to join us, we have a nice way of closing. We'll close the meeting with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Huh? The square dot.